It might be strange to you that we're going to talk about Harry Houdini when we try to talk about order of operations. We're going to use Harry Houdini, a famous illusionist. You might want to call him a magician, but it might not have been magic. It might have been just the ability to manipulate what you see and the ability to extract oneself from some intense predicaments. What I mean by that was Harry Houdini was an escape artist. He was born in the 1860s and he lived until about 1920 something, and he eventually died doing one of his stunts. One of his famous stunts that we're going to talk about was he was chained up and handcuffed, and then he was placed into a box, as you see here. Then that box was thrown into the water. You might be wondering why we are talking about Harry Houdini in math class. And the reason is I want to remind to you that when we have multiple grouping symbols, you want to perform those grouping symbols from the inside out. What are you talking about? Why are you talking about that? Well, I'm going to use these visuals to try to help me out. So Harry Houdini was placed with a bunch of chains. Maybe it was a straitjacket, I don't know, but he was handcuffed, all these chains. Let's put a chain around his ankles too, okay? And then he was closed up in a box, and we're going to put a big lock on that box. Then that box was thrown into the water. Obviously, if he had just started swimming, that would not have helped him. The first thing he had to deal with was the chains. Once he got out of those chains, he got out of the box. Once he was out of the box, then he started to swim. So what I want you to think about is Harry Houdini was stuck inside, and first he had to deal with his straitjacket or his chains. Only then did he deal with the box around him, and only then did he deal with the water that he was stuck in. And so when you are performing your order of operations, I want you to start with the innermost grouping symbols. And then you work from the inside out, just like Harry Houdini. So, when we're given this, we might feel overwhelmed. There's an awful lot of grouping symbols going on. Let's take it slow, and let's work from the inside out. So I go to my innermost grouping symbols, and I'm going to deal with those. And I'm going to be very careful about bringing down everything exactly as it's written, and make sure you bring down your grouping symbols. So -5 plus a 3 will give me a -2. Divide by 2. One thing you might wonder is, when can I stop writing down my grouping symbols? How come these just disappeared? Well, one way to think about when is it okay to get rid of your grouping symbols, when you get a singular value. So when you have a -8, you don't really need that inside a grouping symbol. I just simplified to a -2. I really don't need those there, so that is why I finally got rid of them. So a singular value will set you free from your grouping symbols. So I will now continue to shade and work from the innermost grouping symbol out. I will bring down everything as exactly as it appears, and now this grouping symbol, I do not need it any longer. However, I do want to realize that this operation is right here, and that is a multiplication. So that will be a -1. Don't forget I now have plus 10, and then I close my braces. Now I'm looking at the innermost section, and I'm going to do my multiplication first. So -10 times a 6 plus a 10. I will now shade, and I'll have a -10 times a 16, and -160 is my answer. So to review, you want to work from your innermost grouping symbol, and you work outward.